So, hello everyone, and welcome to yet another PTC Nordic Talks webinar, where we are a bit extra excited today by having Rune Larsen, who is Managing Director for Accenture Industry X team in the Nordics, and he will have a session on driving and measuring sustainability with digital thread. And Rune has been our guest speaker a few times earlier, so a special welcome to you, Rune. But first, a very quick introduction about myself. My name is Torbjörn Peterson, and I'm the Alliance Manager for PTC in the Nordics, and we are running these webinars every week at the same time, where we invite customers and partners for some inspiration on digital transformation to see what is possible and how to make things happen. And all the past webinars have been recorded and are to be found on the registration site. The agenda for today is first a very quick overview of PTC by my colleague Carl from the Customer Success team, and then Rune will start by introducing himself, touch base on a few challenges and how to address these, and then explain some of the business outcomes. And at the end, we are also having a Q&A session, so please keep your questions to the end. So over to you, Carl.
Yep, thank you. Maybe you can move to the next slides, please, Rune. Thank you. So PTC is an international software company with headquarters based in Boston. We are developing software mainly for manufacturing companies since 1985. We offer tools for the digital transformation, such as CAD for design, PLM for managing data, IoT for connecting products or manufacturing operations, and augmented reality to visualize and interact with the digital thread. To you, Rune.
Thank you. That was a quick introduction for a company with a lot of software modules and solutions, but I will take one out.
With you.
Yeah. So the topic today is a topic that is high on the agenda for many companies, and that's why I picked it. And I will come back to the rationale why I want to talk about digital thread and sustainability. So first of all, my name is Rune Larsen. I am the Managing Director Nordics for Industry X. So I lead our Industry X practice in the Nordics, which is basically working along the whole value chain from capital projects to industrial IT solutions and everything in between. So that is a short introduction. And as you know, Accenture is one of the larger system integrators globally. So what I'm going to talk about today is a little bit of background, what we found that companies are struggling with when they're talking about sustainability and technology. Why I think a digital thread is one of the tools, not the only tool, but one of the maybe the most important tools for a manufacturing company or a products company to look at as a way of driving and measuring sustainability. And if we have the time, I will shortly talk about the case study I was involved in as an advisor. So this is in Norwegian, but hopefully you can understand at least the context. So climate change and the challenges you have is not only a global problem that happens far away from us. So this is just a sort of two clips or two I took from screenshots I took from the Norwegian National Broadcasting, where we see that it's also very, very local now. So 20 glaciers gone in Norway since 2006. And we have 200 species now in the Norwegian ecosystem that are vanishing, dying out, and this is so it's not only the famines we see in Africa anymore. It's not only the flooding we see in India. It's very, very local, and that's why in a lot of conversation with customers, bring this up and say, what are we going to do about it? How can we work together to kind of fix this? So as you remember, there were the discussion, or there was the meeting in Edinburgh talking about climate change and what needs to be done. And so the discussion partly was on these three dimensions. What must organizations do to target or to make or to create sustainable value chains? And first of all, they need to provide the customers, the investors and organizations that can kind of connect with the organization the trust that you're actually doing something. And actually doing something means, other than having the festivity speeches and the high flying stuff, they need to back that up with numbers, with facts. So that's the way you also can bring those conversations into the market space, that you're actually doing something. Another thing is that you need to shift the way you design, produce your products, from having a linear production process into a more circular production process. Actually, I was in a meeting with some politicians yesterday. We discussed the same thing for the city of Oslo, how they would have to look at how they buy, how they develop the city of Oslo from being very much a linear economy or with linear process into a circular economy in the city of Oslo. And the third one is net zero. How can we actually get to net zero value chains or production processes? And that is the three areas that most companies are grappling with. So if you have any questions or if you have any comments, please shout out. I can't see anything, I just see the slides. So if anybody wants to add something to this, please feel free to interrupt me. Okay. So we did a study before for the climate change summit, where we had 1,200 CEOs interviewed, and they were from a lot of different countries. There were, of course, the diversity in their gender and across countries and industries. So just want to highlight this one. So most CEOs agree that technology is of importance to kind of create a more sustainable economy, to create a circular economy, to get to net zero, but they have some problems. And sometimes the problems is that we, as both consulting companies, software companies, but also people with expertise inside their own companies, haven't been able to talk about, explain to top management what's need to be done. So for instance, they say the struggle, over half of CEOs struggle to understand which technology that can actually enhance their credentials, or the opportunity to make their company more sustainable. Another one, why I also think a digital thread could be of interest, is that they have very, very large problems measuring the impact across the supply chain or the value chain. So they need to look at how they handle the data. They need to look at how they produce things, and thereby they need to look at new ways of handling it. And that's why I'm going to talk about the digital thread now. So CEOs don't understand the technology, and we as technologists working both outside of company or inside of company needs to help top management understand the opportunities they actually have with technology. So company of tomorrow, and actually today as well, is a kind of interlinked network of participants in an ecosystem. So, and this means that the data needed to kind of get to sustainable value chains will reside in all of these parties, and it will vary, of course, of industries and what kind of organization you are. But this is just an illustration of how many touch points and data that's out there that you need to look at to actually get to understand how your company is measuring or need to measure their sustainability issues. So digital thread. I guess you have all heard about the digital thread, but the idea of a digital thread is that you can actually measure and share data across your whole value chain. And we talked about circular economy, and one of the essential concept of a digital thread is that the data is actually circular. So we'll always have feedback loops from the products that are out there, so you can actually learn. You can have feedback loops back to your suppliers. You can have feedback loop inside your own company, so you can actually understand how different functions, decisions, processes are impacting the way you operate. So that means that a set of, let's say, machinery that's out in the field that will have some quality issues, that data will go back into the feedback loop, how we actually design that part, how we produce it, and then you can rectify it. Because spare parts, if you look at it, is impacting sustainability, for instance. So that's why when I talk to customers now, and they often, when I talk to sustainability leads, production managers, or CTOs, I ask them often, so you talk that you are working on your ESG reporting, but is that actually the goal you are trying to achieve to report on it? Isn't it actually that you want to become better, to have continuous improvement? And how do you actually then work with your data? So a couple of weeks ago, I had a meeting with one of the largest industrial manufacturers in Sweden, and I asked the sustainability lead and the CTO exactly that question, and they said, yes, Rune, that is what we need to achieve. We need to automate this. We need to kind of communicate this. We need to drive this all the way down to how we design the products. And then I said, so why are you then talking about reporting? Why not talking about measuring, driving, putting in place a data infrastructure that is actually supporting the way you want to drive your sustainability agenda forward? So right now, instead of having a discussion of which kind of ESG reporting tool they're actually going to use, we are now working with them to set up an MVP for how to look at how they're actually going to handle the data so they can actually drive continuous improvement. So it's a mind shift. And I know there's a plethora of tools out there for doing ESG reporting, and some of them are based on the EU taxonomy, and some of them are based on passports and what have you. But the underlying concept, I think, that will drive for manufacturing companies is to look at data from a digital thread perspective. When you have constant feedback loops, you can actually drive continuous improvement. I paused there for a second. So if anybody have any comments or ideas or anything,
Yeah,
do you agree with me?
Yeah, this is Hemant here.
Sorry, can we take the questions at the end?
It's not a question.
Okay.
Actually,
Yeah.
it's just an extension of what Rune is actually, communicating here. So Rune, see, one of the most important factors that is being missed out is actually, just taking the case of this washing machine only, right?
Yep.
So in the Western world, when we have the washing machine, giving us some problem, right? So the first reaction is actually just to throw it out rather than getting it repaired and then buy a new one, right? While I actually come from India, but I'm in Copenhagen for past 12 years, right? So in India or emerging world, the tendency is actually to get it repaired and then elongate its life, right? So see, all these small things, they have a very big impact on the sustainability of the whole ecosystem. The market here is actually more aligned towards selling more, right, rather than reusing or having the spare parts and everything else available so that you can just fine tune that washing machine and then reuse it again. But so there is a big mindset change also needed. That is what I feel. Just a comment to what you are already making a brilliant presentation.
I totally agree with you, and that's also why a lot of companies now is looking at how can we actually remanufacture or redesign or put parts of a product back into the economy. And of course, a lot of this thinking where you have a fleet of, let's say, products in the field, then you will look at how can we make these last longer? How can we optimize the fleet management, call it that, of these products? And it will also create a totally new industry where before maybe we talked about waste handling, we now talk about waste production in a way. So we will take out the things that we can reuse and put it back into the production processes, which is and that's happening in battery manufacturing. We will see it happen in automotive with remanufacturing and things like that. And this isn't new. I mean, Xerox did that with copiers in the late 1980s. So it's been done before, kind of reusing parts, putting into good use, and make new products or business models out of it.
Yep.
Of course, then you use the digital twins to support all of these parts of the digital thread, or the parts of your functional value chain inside or outside. And in my view, this is my personal view, a digital twin should have 4 states, or what data it should be, kind of communicate. It's the historical state, it's the as-is state, it's a predicted state, and it's a simulated state. So these are the 4 things that digital thread data can support for digital twins. So that is kind of the link between digital twins to communicate and the digital thread to handle the data is very, very much the thing we are talking to. And then, of course, the data from a digital thread and the digital twins can be collected and organized in a way that can adhere to deregulations that will come to all companies, because EU is driving this very, very hard. So I think the first industry that will be impacted on very, very strict regulation is the textile industry. You will see that in battery manufacturing, we'll see it in products. So we need to wait to kind of collect this, but we need to collect it that you can actually use it for something to become better. So digital twins is, of course, very tightly linked to digital threads, and thereby you will have the opportunity for everyone in the organization that needs data to look at the data, how they can become better. So the link between digital twin, digital thread should not be underestimated. And I must also say, a digital twin is not always a model flying in air in a holoscape 3D model. It could be pretty simple applications with data needed for a particular operator, particular function, or particular process. So that is also how they are defined or working together. So this is another way of looking at it. So if you look at the sustainable value chain, this is mostly I would say inside a company, but you could kind of enlarge the process on top there to go outside a company as well. So maybe the use, service, and recovery is probably closely linked to outside activities of company. But we see that companies now are discussing how can we bring in our suppliers into our value chain more and more closely, and how can we drive by setting goals for them as well. And then, of course, the suppliers' data will become a part of your digital thread. I had a discussion with the automotive company, and they said they wanted to create a digital twin of their cars. And I said, so how are you going to do that if you don't incorporate your suppliers? And I said, well, but we can't get the data. So, well, you have the power to think or to force them or to tell them or to make incentives for them to actually provide you with that data. Otherwise, you can't in any ways guarantee that your car is the most environmental friendly on the planet. So that is also a part of the change management, the contracts that need to be changed to make sure that a digital thread is actually of value across the whole value chain. And as you see here, there's a lot of different activities you can do on the three dimensions I started talking about. So we have, for instance, here on net zero for sourcing, which I just discussed, reduce energy, water use, and emissions. A lot of companies are starting looking into that. We just did a project for a Swedish manufacturer to look at how they can reduce energy by having more complete data and how we could kind of control the energy usage for some of the most energy intensive machinery they had. And by reorganizing, looking at the data, startup time for warming up some of these machines, we have reduced the energy usage by 30%. And now they're going to roll that out globally as a use case in other factories as well. So there's a host of things, a host of data that you need in the digital thread to actually get to or at least as close to net zero as you can come. So and that's why I think when you think about the digital thread, whatever technology you are using at the moment or the combination of technology you have already, you should start thinking inside your company how you can kind of communicate opportunities within your, let's say, your CAD space, your PLM space, your IoT space, or even how we can train your people by using AR technologies and such to make sure that you produce your products in the most sustainable way possible, and also how you start designing products with the sustainability in mind, or maybe making that as the key decision factor when you produce something. And that could be, instead of having weight optimization or cost as the most important design criteria, which is often the case. So as you see, there's a lot of things you can do here with these things. So I think I've had a couple of more minutes, and just going to talk about a company I worked with a digital thread. And the background, this company works in the oil and gas industry. They make large installations for oil and gas industry in the drilling operations. And they wanted to change the business model. That was the thinking they had. They want to make a kind of products as a service for the equipment. They had large revenue leakage, especially on the service side, because of how the ecosystem was set up. And so what happened was that one of the main customers issued an RFP for new equipment. And to their surprise, the issued RFP contained a lot of emphasis on sustainability. So as this company was working on digital thread and working how they can be more sustainable, instead of saying that they told the buying company, the customer, how they're going to use a digital thread to actually drive and measure and become more sustainable by working with the company, the buying company. So they actually engaged with the customer, said, we need data from the installations to drive our production processes, our design process, so we actually can become more sustainable. And the customer liked the way they approached this. And of course, they won the contract, but also what happens was that the customer now was also highly, because of the interest in sustainability, gave them data from the actual production installations so they could start using that data for the next generation or for servicing the actual installations they had, and to design new ways or new parts of the products, enhance quality and all these kinds of things. And by doing this, they open up a new business model based on the digital thread, emphasizing on how they're going to use the digital thread for sustainability. So so that's the way they approach it. Instead of saying we are there, we are trying to get there, but Mr. Customer, we need to have data from you so we can become better at sustainability. So that is just an example of some of the things that I've been working on and that we are constantly working at Accenture right now. So I pause there. I think we have 3 or 4 minutes left. So any other comments or things like that, please feel free to ask me questions.
Thanks a lot, Rune, for sharing all those interesting findings there. So open up for questions here. So please go ahead.
Yeah, hi Rune, this is Hemant here again. So it's a comment and a question as well, right?
Yep.
So see, most of the companies, at least because of United Nations, SDGs, they have an awareness that, what to target, right? At least out of 17 SDGs, So in my view, any digital thread, right? It has to target as per the company's sustainability policy, at least those SDGs that they have planned. And I think in that way, they can actually be sure of, what they are measuring as well. See, the real problem that I am seeing is that, a few of the companies have started the digitalization journey. I think, some 5-7 years ago, right? That is where the main digitalization journey that has started. So if they have to change their course to align with the sustainability and net zero goal, what would be your advice over there? And for the new companies who are yet to start the digitalization, how they should actually incorporate, this SDGs along the way in their tool chain. What would be your advice over there? So there are 2 questions in my comments actually.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So let's talk about the company that already is in production. So I think most of you will agree with me that a lot of manufacturing companies has a tendency to operate in silos. And by operating in silos, they often optimize their own function instead of looking at optimizing, let's say, the whole value chain that they have. And by working with the digital thread and getting into that mindset, you most definitely need to break down the silos so you can actually get the value of the data along the whole value chain. The reason when I talk to manufacturing companies now, bring up the concept of a digital thread is that sustainability will impact all parts of your business. So by talking to sustainability leads, to the CFOs, to CTOs, by bringing in the topic of sustainability, then you can talk about how technology can help the company reach that goal. Because to be honest, when I read a lot of annual reports and stuff, it's like, I think the English expression is like putting makeup on a pig. So, and I said, that is not what they actually want to do, but they need to rethink how they organize the data. And we know it takes a long time to shift because they have large investment in existing capital, production facilities and all that. But you can take it stepwise, but you cannot drive stepwise improvements if you don't have data to actually show how it can be done. That's for the brownfields. What I see on the greenfield opportunities now is you can start designing digitally first, so you can actually simulate and experiment before you actually build the plants. You can actually optimize processes, facility layouts, robotics and all these kind of things. So you can actually start by also designing the plants, the processes and products then with the sustainability in mind from the get-go. So there's two different angles to this, and for Greenfield, they have all the opportunities, and most customers are super excited with the possibilities that technology can bring. And in the partner ecosystem that PTC has, we have Rockwell and Microsoft and a host of other companies that have super interesting technologies. You can kind of look at digital first with sustainability in mind. I don't know if I answered your question, but at least I talked a lot.
No, Rune, seeing the paucity of the time, I'll connect with you later. We are connected on LinkedIn as well. But this topic is very close to my heart. I wear sustainability on my coat as well, right?
Yeah.
So I'll connect with you.
And I often show pictures of nature and glaciers and fishing and hunting and stuff, because we see the changes. I mean, I've been hunting since I was a kid, and species are dying out basically. So, and it's a lot of changes going on. Any other questions, comments? Do you think this was on topic? Was it useful for you? If anybody has to connect with offline, just please do that. And I'm more than willing to talk in depth about the possibilities of technology.
Yes, please go ahead and have one last question.
Don't be shy, don't bite.
Hi, Rune, are you there?
Yes.
Yeah, hi, this is Anant. So looking at your presentation and considering that you have had multiple discussions with multiple corporates and organizations, I see that there are multiple stakeholders in value chain, like vendors, manufacturers, distributors, even consumers. They are relying on, let's say, Amazon or other such platforms. How do you see when there are so many data silos and platforms in place? How can a digital thread be made possible? And do you see that creation of or harmonization of international data exchange standards can maybe drive this, in addition to sustainability being one of the drivers?
So, I can answer this in maybe a different way than you suspected I would answer. So when you work with manufacturing companies, you often tend to talk to the people you talk to production managers, you talk to the design managers, you talk to to maybe the logistics department or what have you. By changing the discussion into a topic like sustainability, you get to talk to other people in a company that has the overarching power to look at the whole value chain in a company, because they, at the C-level now, they are not only being measured on margins and growth, they're also being measured on how do we actually reach the goal of sustainability. And this is driven by investors, it's driven by the marketplace. And there was a study in the Swedish business newspaper called Dagens Industri on how the biggest companies in Sweden is changing the compensation of their top level executives from growth margins and putting in sustainability targets. So the growth in that numbers has grown from, I think it was 16% of the executives being measured on sustainability targets in 2016 to 40% now in 2022. So you need to take the discussion of looking at this, of breaking down the silos a level above where we typically talk when we're talking to manufacturing companies. So when I start talking to companies about these things, I think most of the conversations I've had is with sustainability leads, the CFOs or the COOs. It's not the different departments. So that's the way we have to go to drive this message through. And in the end, a CFO doesn't really care what kind of technology you use. He or she is interested in, did we reach the goals that we set, and how will that impact the business? And in the end, because we are all, a lot of us at least, is interested in how we're compensated, and they are now being compensated by reaching sustainability goals. So that's how I would approach it. Does that make sense?
Yes, because like your last comment, I mean, the top level executive would be unbiased towards a particular platform or a technology. So that would mean a level playing field for different things to, make the outcome, and that is what will drive it. Yes. Okay.
And
thank you.
On the first slide that showed you, 53% of CEOs didn't understand what technologies come into play. So we need to educate them, but we can't educate them by talking technology. We need to educate them how they can reach the goals.
Understood. Thank you.
All right, friends. Time is unfortunately running out.
Thank you very much.
So many thanks everyone for joining, and thanks, of course, to you, Rune, as well. So with that, I wish you a very nice weekend and hope for a lot of sun here. So see you next week. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Bye.